Hey, and welcome to Out of Hiding, a podcast where we focus on growing in God by seeking His truth. Hosted by Dan Morrow and David Flores. All right, we missed our normal scheduled time, David, and I'd like to know what your excuse was.
My excuse was, I don't know, it doesn't sound like a good excuse. I was just super busy. Actually, there is a good excuse. There's a good excuse. We had to take Ivy to the doctor because she's been having drainage in her ears. And so we went to an ENT doctor.
Yeah, ears, nose, and throat?
Yeah, in Tyler, and they want to put tubes in her ear.
Mm-hmm. Wait a minute. I feel sorry for your daughter, but I need to iron this out. Mm-hmm. Was this a pre-scheduled known appointment, or was this an emergency
It was
visit?
A pre-scheduled appointment
so
that
you're using
morning.
A pre-scheduled event as an excuse?
Hang on. My wife, she was like, hey, we're going to go to the doctor today. And I was like, oh, what, who, for what? And then she told me, she was like, oh, we have Ivy and a doctor's appointment in Tyler. So I was like, oh, okay.
You are more like me than you know. That's why I hate you.
Yeah.
So she's going to get tubes? Or they want to put tubes?
Well, I was kind of caught off guard. So the doctor's telling us, yes, she needs tubes. And I was like, well, pump the brakes. The doctor's visit was literally like 4 minutes. And I was like, okay, so what else is there? Like, I want to know more. I don't want to just say, yes, book the OR. You know what I mean? Like, I want to know more. So she's going to go back in 3 weeks. They're going to test her again to see if there's any drainage and do a hearing test. And then after that, make a decision if we're going to do the tubes or not. So be praying that there's no tubes.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Well, I'm excited. We have a special guest today. Her name is Eve Morrow.
Yes.
I happen to know her.
Just a little bit.
I've known her for a while. One of the things I'm excited about having you on today, Eve, is the purpose of this podcast is to bring things to the light, is to shed light on things that help others, all with the intent to help others find God and understand His love and the depth of that love. And so today I'm going to ask that you become somewhat vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I'm a little not nervous, but there's some anticipation here.
Yeah.
Because you're my daughter.
Yeah.
But anyway, tell us about yourself.
My name's Eve Morrow. Yeah, me and Dan go way back, pretty much 23 years and counting. Yeah, I was born and raised in Martins Mill. I went to college at UT Tyler, and I got my bachelor's in psychology, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I graduated, and I traveled a little bit, and then I randomly became a teacher for 1 year. Still didn't know what I wanted to do. Didn't really want to be a teacher, but I was just trying. And so I became a teacher, did not like it, retired already, and then I decided I wanted to learn Spanish. So I went and traveled in Central and South America for about 3 months, just doing volunteer work and learning Spanish. And then I got back, and I had told God, like, hey, if you want me to be in the ministry, like, I want to, but, I don't know how that's going to happen. I don't know what that's going to look like. I had always avoided church. I did not want to be in church, especially the church of my parents. And now...
Why did you have such strong sentiments about not being at the church with your parents?
I think it's just hard. Like, you don't want to be doing exactly what your parents are doing. And I've had, like, everybody has hurts from their parents. I had hurts from my parents, especially, and you get your view, I think you get your view on God and Jesus from your parents. So whatever they are to you, that's who God is. And so for a long time, I honestly hated God along with my parents and my whole family until I had to, do a lot of work to get past that and forgive and just, it was really all God. It's not me, but, it is me, but it's God as well. And just working on that and just realizing, like, it doesn't even matter how I feel or, like, it's all pride, really, is it? Like, it's pride. I didn't want to come be in the church where my mommy and daddy are and they're getting me in here. I didn't want to do that. But then God, He just opened a door and I'm here and I'm loving it. I absolutely love it. But it's like I wanted to go travel more. Like Eve, I wanted to go travel. That's what I thought I was going to do. And God opened those doors for me to go travel the first time. And I thought, like, oh, I'll probably be traveling for a year. I'll probably move down there, da-da-da-da-da. But he closed those doors, and he's like, this is where you're going. And I'm trying my best to follow his plan for my life, because I know that's the only place I'm going to find contentment or joy. And so this is where I'm at, and I'm loving it.
So tell me about where did you have your God moment? Because I know by having raised you, a lot of what you went through. And I remember a time in your life where you didn't want anything to do with God. And you had been in college. You were doing the whole academia thing.
Mm-hmm.
You come back quite liberal
Yeah.
a few times. And I'm like, oh, goodness.
That is so true. Yeah. So when I was a little girl, I was saved. And I loved God so much. Like, I just remember sitting in my room and just, like, feeling his presence and just being like, God, like, you're my best friend. Like, I love you. Like, I could just feel him, and I knew him. And then, obviously, you go through childhood, you get broken. And a lot of stuff happened with my family in my senior year of high school. And I was like, God, I am done with you. You don't care about me. You don't even know who I am. Like, what is this? And I remember we had a family meeting, and my parents kind of explained some tough stuff that was going on in our family, and I was super dramatic, a little teenage girl, and I got up, and I started jumping around, screaming, yelling, and my little brother, Logan, sweetest boy ever, he's just sitting at the end of the table, he's crying, all my brothers are crying, he looks at me, and he said, Eve, God's going to bring something good out of this. And I was like, no, he's not. You're like, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean? No, he's not. God does not care about us. If he cared about us, why would this be happening to us? And so I go to college, and yeah, I tried for like the first bit of college to stay in church and reading my Bible. And eventually I was just like, screw this. Like, I'm done. Like, I am not a Christian. I don't believe in this. And college was not helping that, because I was going to classes where everyone around me was preaching that and trying to prove that God wasn't real, and it was all just, like you're saying, very liberal, very just like new age. And I started going to therapy with Earl, who's like my favorite person ever on the planet. I love you, Earl. And anyway, he knew better than to talk to me about God, because Earl can read people, and so he would every once in a while bring it up, and I'd be like, and I would just change the subject. I'm like, we're not talking about God.
Let me. Can I go back a little bit?
Yes.
Growing up, did you attend church? I don't really know. I mean,
yeah,
I know you guys.
That's a
I
great
don't really
question.
know. Did you attend church? Were you involved in like a youth program?
It's actually kind of funny. So when I was a kid, I was raised in church. I went to children's church till I was. Dad may correct me on this. I think I was probably about 9 when we stopped going to church. Around 9.
What year were you born?
01.
01. So yeah. Yeah.
Somewhere around 9 or 10.
Yeah, that's when the church kind of fell apart that we had grown up in, raised them in.
And I loved church. I loved worship. I always wanted to lead people in worship. It's crazy. Even when I was a kid, I was always asking to get on the stage and sing. But anyway, we stopped going, and I remember my family went through a really rough time. My parents, I think Dad was having a similar thing of what I went through when I was older, of going against God and this and that. And I don't know if you remember this, but I would literally on Sundays have a meeting with Mom and Dad and come to my room, and I'd say, Mom, Dad, you need to take us to church. We need to go to church. I always wanted to go, and I tried and I pushed, and I was like, can we please, like, there's this church, just take us. I had to hunger for it. And I think after so long of not getting it, it just turned it off completely. And so that was when I was like 10. And then once I was probably 17, they started coming to Radiant.
So from 2009 to 2017, there's no church.
No church. No God.
We visited a couple churches. We went for a string of Sundays at one. We kind of liked it. But I'll tell you, to just be honest, my heart was so hard towards church and God because of circumstance and life.
Yeah.
I like the foundation. I had the scriptural knowledge. I just like the foundation.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
When she's doing these meetings, and she's like, Dad, I want to go to church. Like, what did that feel like? I mean, I know you're upset, like the church broke up, and like, what was your answer at the time to her? Like, hey, we're not going to church because, or was there not one? They were just,
in those moments, I realized we needed to go to church, but I didn't want to. So I made some excuse. I was like, we can't find a church that, fits us. And,
honestly, most of the time the answer was, we're going to next week, and it wouldn't happen.
That she's totally right. So he lied to her.
Mm-hmm.
We lied to our kids in that regard. We promised something and then we didn't deliver over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Destroying trust.
Mm-hmm.
Not meaning to,
Yeah.
but inevitably destroying trust.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
The reason I say that is because it's kind of like a common theme. Like, you know, I feel like the same way my parents, not that they didn't take us to church, but they would be like, oh, we'll go next week. And then we don't go next week. And then we hit this 2 months without going to church. And then randomly we'll jump back in and then we'll start that process over. So I just wanted to see what that mindset was. If it was, I mean, my parents, I don't really know. Maybe I'll get them on and ask them, or just ask them personally.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the same thing they would do with me is,
Wow.
hey, we're going to go, but we're not going to go.
Yeah.
Or, hey, we'd get dressed, or then, like, they'd be, like, an excuse, oh, we're not ready, we're just not going to go, or whatever the situation is. So,
Yeah.
anyway.
I'm glad
So,
you did
2009, you quit going.
Yeah.
2017,
So then,
back at Radiant.
yes, but not real. I was like, at that point, I would just go through the motions, come, you know, I like to see people. I would play music a little bit, but I actually was trying, but I was just so, at that point, I wasn't upset at God yet. I was just disconnected. Like my spirit was just completely crushed, and I just didn't know how to connect with him, and I just had such an illusion of my life. And then that big old thing happened in my family in 2018, which was now the biggest blessing in disguise ever. But, so I went to college. I became, like, super against church. I was like, Christians are dumb. Like, why do people think that God exists? Like, God does not care about you. But thank God that God has grace on my life. And he helped me find Earl. And I remember going to him, and he would try to bring up God every once in a while. And I was like, yeah, whatever. I know you think that, but, like, I don't think that. Okay. And so one time Earl, he would have these monthly meetings, and he asked me to come play. I had played my guitar for him. I brought it because I've always just loved music. And anyway, I come and I play a Billie Eilish song for the group. And I look up, and I actually brought my ukulele, and I just played it, and I just sang. And I look up, and everyone in the room is crying. I'm like, what the heck? Like, I'm just singing a Billie Eilish song. Like, what are y'all feeling in here? And I come to Earl the next time, and he goes, hey, little girl, you're in trouble. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, God has a calling on your life. Like, your music is your calling. Like, you are anointed. And I was like, okay. Like, no, I'm not. Like, God does not care. Like, God's not real. Like, what are you talking about? But okay. He's like, just watch. He's like, you have a stamp. Like, God stamped approval on your life to play music for him. And I was like,
So, when did this switch where you're like, all right, I'm doing it and I'm going full steam?
well, so I continue going to therapy and, like, pretty much just start getting in super toxic relationships with men, and I cannot get out of it. Like, I'm just dating basically sociopaths all the time, and that was kind of my thing, like, my struggle. Like, some people, you know, they have drugs, alcohol, this and that to cope, but I was never into any of that. I was just into being in really toxic relationships, and it was just super bad. And I went to Earl. I kept going to him, and nothing was getting better. I'm like, we're going through therapy. Why is it not working? And one day he goes, do you know what you have? And I was like, what? He's like, you have a God problem. I'm like, what does that mean? He's like, this is not a problem that you can solve. Like, you keep trying. You've been trying for years. This is a God problem. And I'm like, what? No. Like, no. And he's like, yes, it's a God problem. So I was like, okay. And, like, I went home, and I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll give this God thing another chance. Like, maybe I will. And
what is the timeline on that?
I think this was about a year and a half ago. So
Okay.
this would have been when I was 22.
It was before Europe.
Was it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It was before Europe where we started having those hard discussions about restoration in the family. So there was a time period where Eve was really, really mad at me and wouldn't speak to me.
Mm-hmm.
And we went through a restoration.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to have some really, really hard talks.
Mm-hmm.
And then it shifted into her mother.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a time period where
It was a long period. I did not talk to my mom.
she would not speak to Dawn.
Um.
But we were getting close, and we had built trust. And so I had this, dad card, husband card that I was hearing it from both sides. And if your dad's out there, I want you to hear this. I exercise extreme confidentiality with what Eve told me
Mm-hmm.
and with what Dawn told me.
Mm-hmm.
I treated them as two separate, independent beings.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't go spill the beans to Dawn, and I didn't go spill the beans to Eve, to protect them, to allow them to heal and to grow. I was there for Dawn and I was there for Eve at the same time, and that's possible to do.
I gotta ask you this: how did I mean? Okay, how did you manage your family spiraling in chaos?
I didn't.
And then you have your business, your family's on fire, everything like. And then how did you go home and did you just like sit on the couch and just everything's just like how I know. I just want to hear that perspective. Like, there's somebody right now that's like, I'm losing my family.
Yeah.
I'm crazy busy with work, and I'm
At the
struggling here.
At the time this was going on, I made more money than I could spend or that my wife could spend. We had so much money coming in. We didn't even care. Like, literally at the time, like, I don't even remember what we were buying. I remember seeing some credit card statements that were $100,000 bought and paid in a month's time. I remember little tidbits of that, but all I remember was one day I was sitting on the side of the road, seriously contemplating just opening my door and hopping out in front of a car.
Oh my God.
Wow.
I remember that distinctly. I remember exactly where I was sitting. I had just gotten a phone call about a job. Don't remember what that was about. And I got off the phone and I look up at God and I was like, God, I don't want to do this.
You're empty.
I'm done.
Yeah.
So what are the steps? What do these men need to do to take? I mean, I know you're
So
calling God.
I'm reaching out. I'm reaching out to Adam. I'm reaching out to Earl. I'm reaching out to the mentors, to the rocks in my life, the solid people. So Adam's pouring into me at this time. Earl's pouring into me at this time. I mean, Adam is to the point where he's just showing up at my house. I have another friend. His name was James Oliver. He was the superintendent over at Martinsville. He's pouring into my life. I got a bunch of friends that just started pouring into my life, and they just rallied around me. And so we started to heal. And that's whenever I got myself back into therapy, working hard every week on my personal self, healing and, the things that we do. And started going through that process hard. I started getting my word. I was reading the Bible like religiously, seeking Him religiously, just putting everything I got into God. I know I grew up as a Christian. I know the power that God holds. I was like the little tree, though, that got blown away by the storm of life. I didn't have firm roots when it hit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was a bad thing.
Yeah.
Like, looking back, if that tree hadn't been smashed and the family fractured and all of the hurt, there would be nothing of what you see today. Yeah. And what you see is a family that has learned, correct me if I'm wrong, we have learned that we are completely and utterly incapable of living life without God.
Yeah. We are just broken.
Yeah, we were broken, fleshly people without God. You take God away from me right now, I'm instantly the worst piece of crap you've ever met. If God's in my life, I can't stand it. Like, I have to do what He wants me to do.
Yeah. Yeah, and you take God out of my life, like, I'm not forgiving my family. I'm not with y'all. I'm not hanging out with y'all. I'm over here with some random douchebag guy, like, hanging out with him or just going crazy over things that I can't control.
So can I ask you the same question? What are the steps of you, like, forgiving your family and your parents or whatever? Like, what did that steps look like? I know you said Earl.
Well, definitely a lot of therapy helped me because, like, I believe that we all have a spirit and a little girl. Like, I had a little girl inside of me who needed to be heard and held and told that she was okay for what she felt and that it was okay to be angry. It was okay to be sad. Now, what's not okay is, like, taking it out on them. Like, revenge is never the answer. But just feeling the space and, like, giving myself that space to feel it. But then after that, I just realized, like, turning to God completely. Like, He is the only way that I can forgive because I don't have that power. Like, my human nature, like, I want to get revenge. I want to be spiteful. But if I turn to Him, He helps. He causes me to forgive. Like, I have to if I want to follow Him. But also, I just remember thinking, like, Eve, what could your dad do to make you forgive him. I'm like, okay, what if he gave me $1 million, got on his knees, begged and begged? I could still say, no, I don't forgive you. What if he did nothing? What if he just continued being a bad dad or did this or that? I could still not forgive him. Now, I just realized forgiveness is a choice. Like, it's not something that can be earned. And that's like with God too. Like, he just chooses to forgive us. There's nothing that we can do to earn it. But I just remember being like, there is absolutely nothing my mom or dad or brothers or anybody could do to make me forgive them. But there's nothing they could do to make me not forgive them. Like, it is all within me. Like, my love and my forgiveness is a complete choice. And I was like, do I want to live my life being bitter and just being sad all the time? Or do I want to, like, forgive those people and just love them anyway? Love them no matter what. I don't care what he does now. I will love him. Like, that is my choice. Same with my mom, my brothers. Like, if my dad decided to become an alcoholic or become a drug addict, like, it's my choice to love him.
Yeah.
Like, obviously with boundaries.
Yeah.
But I guess just realizing that forgiveness was a choice. And that's like, I think that the Holy Spirit really showed me that, you know.
Wow.
I do want to add this. In that time period, so when we have really severe pain and hurts, whether it be church or family related, we can heal. God has given us the power to grieve it, to heal from it. There are things, though, that can take place that accelerate that. And in that process, one of those things that Earl told me, he's like, you want to help your kids grow? You want to help them take that hurt and heal from it? Shut your freaking mouth.
I know you didn't say it like that.
Yeah. He said, shut your freaking mouth. Love them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen to them. Don't try to impart your almighty wisdom that you don't have into them. Shut your mouth. So what we would do is we would sit out. I remember a distinct spot we happened to meet several times, Eve and I. We sat out under the live oak tree right out from under the porch. And she told me what a piece of crap I was. And I just said, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I just said, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
And
I just let her spew it all out. And then that opened a whole nother door. And then she started to call me. I remember another time I'm out at a buddy's birthday, and we're sitting in a restaurant, and we're all celebrating his birthday. We actually have a game of dominoes on the table at this little place we like to go in Dallas. And I get a phone call, and it's Eve. And, of course, she's pissed because Eve won't talk to her, but I'm getting a phone call from her. And I just look at Dawn, and I said, you have to trust me. And I go out, and I sit on the phone with Eve for 45 minutes outside. And I listen to her vent her frustrations with her current boyfriend and the problems that she was going through. She cried. And all I did was listen.
Yeah.
And it started to bridge. It started to accelerate the hurt feelings into healing. When I could have said, how do you think I feel? How do you think I feel? I did this for you. I provided for y'all. I bought you this. I took you to basketball tournaments. Who cares? No one cares.
Yeah.
Right? Parents, if you think your kids care about all the things you did for them, they don't. No more than you cared what your parents did. Like, that's an illusion. And it's very worldly in nature.
Yeah.
Like, what Eve wants is an authentic, emotional connection with her dad.
Yeah.
She wants to feel that unconditional love. And unconditional love has no merit in worldly things or possessions. First of all, I didn't go out and do all that. God blessed me all along the way with the earning potential. God blessed me with the resources to take care of the family. And that was my first big illusion, is thinking that I was the one providing for the kids. And I was trying to teach them that I was.
Yeah.
And that I'm doing all this. And that's what led to my demise. It was the pride and arrogance to think that in a moment I could do something so grand that I could make all that money. It had nothing to do with me. He could take anyone in this world and make them rich or make them poor. Yeah. There's stories all in the Bible where people got rich and people didn't get rich. People who held on to things and people who let go of things. And it's all about our understanding that it all starts and ends with Him.
Yeah.
And being okay with wherever that is.
Yeah, I will say, like, as the kid, it is so helpful when a parent, it's not necessary. Like, if you're a kid out there, or everyone's a kid, everyone has parents, like, you can forgive your parents without them doing a single thing. They don't have to get better. They don't have to listen to you. Now, does it make it easier? Yes, it makes it a million times easier. But, like I was saying earlier, like, it forgiveness is a choice. Like, you choose to do it. Now, I'm so thankful that Dad listened to me and all that, and it really helped. It made it faster. Like you said, it made the process faster. But it's still possible. Like, there is restoration's possible without the other party changing at all. And
here's a case in point. The kids were very close to their grandpa, and he ended up divorcing my mom. I've already told that story, so I'm not going to go back there, but he just left a massive hole in my heart and in the kids' lives and in their hearts. And we all worked really hard and diligently to forgive him. And we moved on. It was 12 years ago. And recently, myself, Eve, and Dylan, we go out to see him in West Texas. And our expectancy was a surface level. He's our dad. He's our grandpa. We're going to respect him, and we're going to spend some time with him.
Yeah.
And what happened, Eve?
So we were in the car. We were driving in the truck, and all of a sudden, Grandpa, he starts talking about some kind of memory about us as kids, and then it gets quiet, and he just starts crying, and he goes, yeah, all that happened, and then I left y'all. And I am sorry. And he starts crying, and I just am like, what? He's like, I am so sorry. I am such a coward. I've never been able to say this. Like, I don't know why I did. Y'all are perfect. You are the best son. Y'all are the best grandkids, and I'm so sorry that I left you and all this. And it was so beautiful. But like Dad said, like, I didn't even need that. But it was so nice to receive it. It was beautiful. But I had already forgiven my grandpa. I had spent years crying, punching my pillow, writing my songs, being all sad, and I had come to forgiveness. And it was amazing that happened, and it really did open up more for our relationship. But it really wasn't necessary. Like, we had all reached forgiveness already with him, but then for him to come by and say that, it just made it. And I know it lifted a weight off of his chest. I think it really lifted a weight off of all of us, but
we had reached forgiveness.
Yeah.
But we were lacking one element to what I think God has for a family. And forgiveness is one thing, and we had been there. What we lacked was restoration.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad saying that in those moments created the first real step to restoration. Because in that moment, we were all four of us just bawling our eyes out in that truck, hearing him pour his heart out. Let us see the real him. Let us hear him say, I was the coward. I'm the one who lost here. You guys didn't lose by not having me. I lost by not having you. He said all of these beautiful, kind, heartfelt things that you could tell he has been in turmoil over for the last 12 years. That began a new process called restoration.
Mm-hmm.
And it's God's design that we all can restore and get back, because God is the architect of the family. Mm-hmm. He designed that to be a forever thing. And him doing that, I commend my dad. So, Dad, if you're ever listening to this, I'm so proud of you. I love you so much. I'm so thankful that you had the strength. He finished the statement with, I'm just so sorry I didn't do it sooner.
Mm-hmm.
And my son Dylan, in his just godly wisdom, like, I don't know how to say it. I don't know where he even got it. He looks at him and he goes, no, Grandpa, this was God's timing.
Mm-hmm.
If you had said this even a year ago, I wouldn't even given you the time to listen to you, because I was so angry. I wouldn't even given you the time of day. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was so beautiful, because so much patience was exercised, forgiveness was exercised, all of these godly principles that the Bible talks about was exercised, and it took a 12-year period, which in the moment seems like an eternity.
Yeah.
But now looking back, God's timing was like, it's like the conductor conducting the orchestra. There's so many nuances and so many things can go wrong in an orchestra. There's so many different people playing so many different instruments with so many different sounds. So many different things can go wrong. But God is his timing is perfect. And if we're all looking to him, man, his timing just falls in line.
Yeah.
For healing and for restoration. And God's plan all along was to have our family restored.
Yeah, and also I think we all outside of the family, like God orchestrates like exactly what we need in our life. Because like with the fall of our family back in like 2018, I truly think that happened because God in my life, he wanted my whole heart, and he wanted me to be separate from my family for a while and be completely alone. He wanted me to say like, or to realize like, I am his. Before I'm anybody else's, I'm his. And like, he is the only person I can depend on. He's the only one I have. And like, if that didn't happen, I don't know if I would have reached that point of so low to realizing that I needed God and that he is the only way I'm ever gonna have a life.
I come from a long line of prideful men. Like if I boil it down, my Morrow heritage, we're prideful people, man.
Mm-hmm.
We're charismatic. We're good at talking to people, but at our core, we deal with pride.
Mm-hmm.
And to have us all go through this breakdown and crush our pride and realize that pride is the opposite of anything godly. Man, it was phenomenal. It's the best lesson ever. It through that nasty tool, God like created this amazing family. Now we're, do we still have problems? Absolutely, but we can sit down as a family and we can talk through these problems, and we've learned to hear each other's voices in a different way, with empathy, and it's awesome.
It's crazy because all your kids are just like, you know what I mean? I got to play basketball with them about a year or two ago, and we didn't really have that, but now, I mean, Logan called me yesterday. I was at Walmart randomly. Hey, love you, man. I just, thinking about you, and I needed that phone call because I was stressed out for who knows why, but it was just so cool. And then just, you, like, I don't know, I feel like just here recently, you've just been like a light.
Aww.
That's the best way I can describe it. And I know it's just so awesome to see that. And I really appreciate you guys being so, vulnerable, talking about all this.
If you remember when Gabriel was here, Pastor Gabriel, he said something to me. He said, God speaks to you through your daughter.
Mm-hmm. I wasn't going to bring that up because I didn't think it was my thing to share, but I was hoping you would bring it up.
Well, I want everyone to hear that statement. I'm a 44-year-old man. I've lived a lot of life. I'm grown. I'm pretty mature, emotionally pretty mature, spiritually. Probably not as much as I should be, but I'm, I work hard on it. But I have this daughter who's 23, and God chose to use her to speak to me, and she still does. Like, I understand that God has given her a spirit, an intellect, a mind that's sharp as a tack, and I respect that in her enough to listen to her and to hear her input. I value what she says because I know she's a godly woman. Same with my boys, all of them. And I never had that before because I was raised that I'm the parent, you're the kids. I'm the authority, I'm the ultimate say, and you're just the kid. Shut your mouth unless you've been talked to. That's how my dad was raised. My poor dad never got a voice. He didn't get to say anything. And that's just not the way God created us. God created all men equal. He gave us all gifts, callings, voices to be heard. And that kind of mindset is so closed off, and it's absolutely dangerous and detrimental because God wants to use everybody, and he'll use whoever it takes to get to you if he has to. But he chose to use Eve a lot in my life, and I'm so thankful for that.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's good.
Thanks.
That's awesome. I mean, I remember him saying that, and that's why I was like, I hope you bring this up. I don't want to have to,
That's super cool. I couldn't believe you said that.
He didn't even know her, and he didn't even know me. That was the first time I met him.
That's crazy.
And it was a prophetic thing. It was God's telling me that I'm proud of you, son. I'm proud of you that you're taking heed, you're listening. I'm proud that he's to me, it was confirming the things in my head that I'm like, is this right? Am I following God? And it was total confirmation in a great way.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I want to bring up one last thing. I just feel like we left Dawn hanging.
Okay.
If we could, I know we're getting close to the end, but can we shed light on where she is at? Like where's her come up? Like I know you were upset with her. How did you like forgive her and like build that strong relationship with her again?
Yeah, I think it's pretty much a similar situation to Dad, but I do have this one like specific memory that like I think it was the Holy Spirit just revealed to me. I was at their house, and I was going through all my pain with my mom and just trying to get through it and trying to forgive her and trying, because I love my parents to the moon and back. Like, obviously, I want a relationship. Like, every person loves their parents. Like, they're your parents. And I was like, this just can't be. I can't just be mad at my mom forever and just wishing she would do this or that or would have loved me this way or that way. And I was making the bed at their house because I'd stayed the night there. And I, like, peeled back the quilt, and it said, Danielle. And it said, love mom and dad. And like in that moment, I just started crying, and I just realized, like, oh my God, like my mom is just a little girl who wants her mom and dad to love her. Like, she has a parents too, and she has a childhood, and she is broken, and I just realized, like, that poor little woman or that little girl, she's just waiting on her mom and dad to love her still, the same way I'm trying to wait on her to love me the way I want to be loved. And I just realized, like I can't keep waiting on that. Like, I have to just love her exactly how she is, and like just the way that she's gonna have to love her parents. Like, I think I realized that she is just a human being and just a broken little girl, and she is doing her absolute best. Like, she loves me with her full capacity, whatever that capacity is, both my parents. Like, but I guess just realizing, like, she gave me everything she had, and all she had is what she was given. And that just, like, seeing her name on that quilt and seeing, like, mom and dad and just being like, oh my God, like, she has a mom and dad too, and she's just a kid just like I'm just a kid. It really set me free. And ever since then, it's just like, I just see my mom and I can just adore her and love her for exactly who she is, and I don't need anything from her.
Wow, that's beautiful. And it's so hard. That's so mature of you to like realize that, because, my parents are my everything. You don't think about it. Okay, they have problems. They had issues, so that's very.
And inside of them too is just another little boy and another little girl who
Yes.
they want the same thing that we want.
Yes, I remember, like, so with my dad, it was back, I forgave my dad, like, way long before, like we were saying, and it was also easier to forgive my dad because me and my mom were a lot closer. So, like, the closer you are with someone, the more it's
The deeper the cut.
deeper, and this and that. Two girls versus a dad and daughter, whatever. And I remember driving home from Earl's, and I was just thinking about my dad. And at that time, I was super angry. I was an angry girl, and I was an angsty little girl. And I just thought of my dad, and I just saw his little boy just sitting there. Like, I just imagined him as a kid, and I started sobbing, and I was just like, oh my God, like, I just realized he didn't want any of this. He didn't want his family to be broken. He didn't wish that he would hurt me. He never wanted to hurt me. He didn't want to hurt any of us. And most every parent out there, probably 99% do not want to hurt you. That was never their intention. And I know that he's so broken, tore up inside because he did. And that's never what he wanted to do. And any parent, my mom too, like, that's not what they ever wanted. And I know I'm going to have kids and I'm going to hurt them, and that's never going to be my intention. But just realizing, like, oh my God, like, he's just a little kid, like, that's doing his best with what tools he has. And, like, he's hurt and broken the same way I'm hurt and broken, and he's sad. And it's just so much easier to love them and love every human being. Like, it's not just my parents. Like, that's how I view the world. Like, I look at you, I see a little boy. Like, I see a person who wants to be heard and who wants to be talked to and who's also broken. And I'm a broken person too. And it's just so much easier when you think of it like that. Like, every single person you meet, with a few exceptions, is just like a little boy or a little girl.
Man, this was such a great episode, and I appreciate you guys both being on here and, not holding back and speaking truth. And I think somebody really needed to hear that today, to forgive. Like we were talking on, it's never forgive and forget, but you can definitely forgive and,
and be restored.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I don't even want to forget any of that stuff because it's what made me who I am, and it's what made him who he is, and our whole family. And you too, whatever you're going through, whatever your family has done to you or what you've done, like, God's going to use that. Like, that's my ministry now. Like, I can help other little girls or boys or adults. It doesn't matter. And him too. Like, that's our ministry. and that's what we can use. I don't even want to forget it.
No, I think Dan, he put his hand on my life, and I was going down the same road that he went down.
Yeah.
And he put a big old block and said, turn around,
Yeah.
Like you don't want to go down that path.
Yeah.
And, who would have thought, I probably couldn't have made it through it, and I'm so thankful for that. And, so I'm just thankful for your guys' whole family. You guys have really just
thank you.
poured into people's lives and the ministry, and just, I don't want to say I'm glad you guys went through that trauma, but y'all grown
I'm
so
glad.
much.
I'm so glad we did, because now we have a family who genuinely just loves people.
Yes.
We've learned to love people. We love ourselves. We recognize we're a mess, but it helps us love others so much more. It helps us spread the love of Jesus at another level. We're so much more effective now, because I was in ministry before, way back when. My effectiveness was weak.
Because you had so much pride.
Yeah,
and same with me. Like, I remember when I was in high school before, because, like, that whole, like, explosion of our family, it just brought up everything to the surface. But before that, I was so prideful. I was like, we're the Morrows. Like, we own this town. Like, we're awesome. Blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm serious. Like, I thought that way. And I was like, I would never date a guy who would treat me bad. Like, girls who do that, just stop dating him. Like, what the heck? Like, do you have daddy issues? Like, what the heck? And then I was like, oh my God, I have daddy issues, and I'm doing the same thing. I got all the issues. Like, I'm so broken. And now when I meet a girl or a guy who's doing anything, like whether it's drugs, dating someone toxic, I'm just like, all you are is in pain. Like, I don't see them anymore as, like, lesser than me. I'm like, that was me, that could be me, that is me. And it's so much easier to love people.
Before we go, I want to give you guys next steps if you're listening. If you're in that spot and your family's torn apart, you're especially you entrepreneurs out there. Everyone thinks that the entrepreneur, they make all the money and they don't do any hardly thing. It's one of the hardest things in the world to own and run a business. It's never-ending stress. You don't get to clock out of it. You don't get to have any break from it. On vacation, that just means more work when you get back. It's this life that just can consume you and destroy you. So if you feel like you're in that spot, I want to encourage you, reach out. Reach out. It don't have to be to me, but there are people right here at this church, Radiant Church, who want to help you. There are people that empathize, that have gone through your circumstances. You're not alone. Okay? You're not. That's one of the things that the devil loves to do, is he loves to make you think that you're the only one going through this, and you're all alone,
not too
and
big.
something's wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. You're made in the image and the likeness of God. Life has hit you hard. It's knocked you down, but it ain't killed you, and it's never too late. It's never too late to return to God. So if reach out. Do not try to bear that on your own. Reach out. There are people that are trustworthy, they're confidential, and they want to share the love of God with you.
And they've gone through it too.
Yep.
Like you're saying, you're not alone. Like, y'all may look at our family and see this certain image, or any leader in the church, you automatically get idolized, but we are all just human beings, and we are all broken, and we all understand what it's like.
My dad, I'll stop with this, but my dad tells me stories all the time. His dad was a pastor. My papa, love my papa. I miss him. He's in heaven. He's passed away, but they had two families. They had Sunday morning family, and then they had behind the curtains family. I don't want two families. I want one family, and that family is a godly family. That's the only family I want. We are the same behind the curtains as what we present. That's one of the reasons I've been able to be so honest up from the platform and be honest in the youth, is because I'm very, very secure that I'm a broken person without God.
Yeah.
And it doesn't shame me to let others know that I'm a failure. Because the Bible says we have all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. All. So, you're not alone out there.
Not alone. Well, thank you, Eve, for
joining
us today. I know we had a little hiccup on, the delay or whatever, but thank you for being here and being so vulnerable and open up. And thank you, Dan, for taking it and being vulnerable and just, sharing your story too.
Thanks for the awesome questions too.
Yes.
Thanks. Y'all are great. Thank you.
Let's go get some lunch.
Let's do it.